Hi guys, you're welcome again to another episode with the Senator here on Senator Kelesi and you. And today I want to take you through a journey of how we can go about our visa acquisition procedure. The reality is that in 2026, while Germany is struggling and trying to desperately look for workers to fill in the huge open positions due to deficiency in workers, there is still a very high rejection rate for African students who are seeking to come and study in Germany. And I am talking about students because after studies, definitely they will want to stay here and work to fill into this position. So Africans still have high visa rejection rates that sometimes hit up to 30% as compared to the 10% globally. So you will find that this value is high, and as a result, a lot of people are kept out. But what we should know is that it is not actually your problem sometimes. It is the system. And the system has rules. And if you break any of these rules, you're out. Meaning that if you are not submitting the right documents and you're not doing the right thing, you will not be able to get the visa. And so today I want to take you through how we can fix this and be able to submit visa applications that will get us the visas that we so desire in order to come and study here. So if you're here for the first time, please hit the subscribe button, and when you watch the videos, drop a comment. You can also drop a like and also share with your friends, because in that way we can spread the news around and people will get to find this information which will be helpful to them so that they can be able to get their visas to come and study in Germany. When somebody is going for a visa, the person has high hopes. To keep these hopes alive and to keep the person's dreams alive, the person needs to have information that is helpful. So I am going to begin right away by talking about 3 rejection killers. And what am I talking about? The first one I will pick up is the blocked account. We have to understand here that as of now, 2026, what you need to put in the blocked account as a student is 11,904 euros. That is what should be in your blocked account. But the problem is not only about the money being in the account. If you apply for a visa and at some point they ask you to come and show proof of your finances, even if you had submitted your blocked account, then you have to be sure that the source of money is clean. So in some cases, when somebody shows up to the embassy with the paperwork showing how the money came into his or her account, and they have a sudden huge deposit into that account, that already signals a red flag, and they can already start investigating. Is this about moving money here and there illegally? So that is what you should understand when you are dealing with the blocked account, or when you create a blocked account and put money in it. There should be a paper trail that gives a clear documentation of where the money is coming from. That is the first thing that you should take note of, because if you do this right, your visa is not going to be blocked at the level of the blocked account. The second thing here is academic gap. And when I talk about an academic gap or academic inconsistency, there is something here that you should note. Take, for example, you graduated with a bachelor's in 2021, and then you're applying for a master's in 2026. Is there a way this gap can be explained in your documents? Have you documented, have you given clear information on what happened between 2021 and 2026? If you are working in one field and then suddenly you want to go for masters in another field, that is something that you should also be careful about, because your career should be flowing. And if there is this gap which cannot be explained, what you were doing within these years, or if you're working in one field and you now want to completely switch to another without clear documentation, the visa officer could sense that you are just looking for a way to migrate. You are just looking for a door to go through and migrate, and not actually coming to Germany to come and study. This is something that people do not know, but these are little red flags which are like killers to your visa application when you send an application to the embassy. Another thing here which I will discuss is the language barrier. And when I talk about the language barrier, what do I mean? We apply to study in English. For example, you want to do a master's in English, but then you are invited for an interview at the embassy and you are not able to explain your motivation letter in good English. Then the visa officer senses it as a red flag. Even if you have a TOEFL certificate or an IELTS certificate showing that you have a good score in English and you cannot express yourself, that already is a problem. And the visa officer can already trigger something there which will prove that there is something wrong with your language. Now, we will gradually be moving to policy changes in 2026. As of 2026, there was a policy change and the remonstration process was abolished. What was the remonstration process all about? It was just an informal way of making a complaint. Like if you applied for a visa and it was denied, you could do a remonstration. That is, you write an appeal to the embassy, asking them to review your documents again. But that process was already abolished in 2026, which means you cannot do a remonstration again. Rather, you are asked to file a formal complaint at the Berlin Administrative Court. So you are required, if your visa is rejected and you want to appeal, as at now, what you are required to do is to file a formal complaint at the Berlin Administrative Court. Remember, this is an expensive process. And take, for example, if you're in Cameroon, will you be going through filing a case in Berlin? That already gets difficult and challenging. The other option that could happen, what could happen if your visa is rejected according to new policies, is that you start the process all over again, which will be taking a lot of time. So my advice to you will be to try as much as possible to do everything right. Make sure that you submit all the required documents and everything is right. Remember, I already talked about how your blocked account should be, and make sure that everything is just correct and right in them, and you will not have to go revisiting these processes that will take maybe forever or even disturb you from getting the visa at the time you're supposed to get and come for studies. And already talking about that and seeing where the loopholes can be or where the problems could come and how the difficulties can cause you not to get your visa in time, I would like us to move progressively to the next stage of how you can win, how you can overcome this. And that is what I call the golden strategy. That is the strategy you can use to go through the system without having issues again. And that is, I will make it into something like a checklist. And the first thing I will say there is, with the coming of AI making everything very easy, I will strongly advise that you should not use ChatGPT to write your motivation letter. Of course, ChatGPT can craft it very nicely, but you need to try to be yourself. So don't use ChatGPT to write your motivation letter. Or if ChatGPT were to write your motivation letter, make sure that it actually aligns to who you are. Because what ChatGPT does is it collects information. It is just a system that has been trained. It gives you the best possible thing that you can have out there. And if you don't customize it, if it doesn't reflect who you are, then you are making a mistake. So the first thing on how to win this system and get your visa and make sure that everything goes through correctly is first not to use ChatGPT to write your motivation letter. And secondly, I will say that if you have already been invited for an interview at the embassy, you need to treat this interview like a job interview, though you are a student. What do I mean? You need to have information about the specific university you are going to. You need to already have information about the city you are going to study. You need to have good information about the program that you want to study, the curriculum that you're going to be dealing with. When you talk that way as a professional, as somebody who understands the system, who understands what he or she is doing, the visa officer will be convinced. But if you're just giving general information about Germany, nobody cares. And that is not going to earn you your visa. And like I said in the last video that I made, or last but two videos that I made, you need to submit your application through the consular service portal. There is an online system now. You don't have to go to the embassy to deposit your documents. Submit your documents through this digital portal. That is the preferred means now. When you submit through this portal, your documents are handled and the process goes faster. So you need to use the online portal and make sure that your documents are correct. For some countries like Nigeria and Ghana, you need to submit an APS certificate. Those involved will obviously know what an APS certificate is. I could try to explain this in another episode. So if you don't have this APS certificate, you can be sure that your visa will be rejected immediately. But now the good thing is with the online system, if you don't submit the certificate, what is going to happen is they are going to ask you to submit the certificate. If you don't have it, then it means you've stalled your visa process and it could end there, which will mean that all the time you've spent and all the money you've spent in preparing all the documents will already be wasted. That is why I keep insisting on making sure that your documents are right and correct in everything is done in the order which it is requested. That is going to help you not to lose your time and not to waste money in any way. And again, I want to say this, and you should take it seriously. There are certain things that the German embassies, wherever in the world they are, they already will find as a red flag. Remember, in some of the videos I have said you can do all these processes without needing an agent. In fact, I discourage the use of agents. I am not saying that agents should not be working or whatsoever, but if you choose to go to the agents, they will take your money. The advice here actually is that you shouldn't use those people who are called guaranteed visa agents. I am sure those of you watching me from Africa will know what guaranteed visa agents are. These are people who pose to you saying that they can be able to process your visa, they can be able to handle everything and make your visa go through. You should be very careful. You can do this process on your own because some of the embassies have already put a red flag on some of these guaranteed visa agents. And when they see that you are connected or your documents are being handled by any of them, that is already a problem and you can already lose your visa. So you should take care of that and make sure that you are doing the right thing. Another red flag which you should be very careful about is inconsistent names. Inconsistent names. This is what will surprise so many people. But the truth is, in many countries in Africa, there are errors with people's names on different documents. Take, for example, on your certificate, your name is spelled differently, and maybe on the blocked account, it is different, and on the passport, it is different. This is going to trigger the embassy to already feel that something is wrong. Even if there is just a missing letter in one of the names and the embassy officer realizes that this is going to be a wrong trigger, and then your documents may now have to be verified. And you know, the process of verification of documents in every embassy takes 6 months. This is what you should know. Are you ready to still spend 6 months waiting for your documents to be verified? That is something that nobody would desire. So you need to work hard to make sure that your names are right in all your documents. It is true that somebody on preparing a document might make a mistake. In fact, people's certificates have come with mistakes on them, but always check for your name, your date of birth, and all that critical information about you. Make sure that it is very correct, because if there is a mistake, if there is inconsistency in your names, that could become a big issue, and it could even can delay your visa, and to some extent it can even be rejected. So you should be careful. The next red flag that you should know is hybrid programs. I will discourage anybody thinking that he or she is going to get a student visa for a hybrid program. It should be very clear that student visas are issued to people who have to study on campus. That is, they need to be present in the campus to study. So if you have a hybrid program, if you're doing a hybrid program, part of it online and then part on campus, you are not supposed to apply for a student visa. If you apply for a student visa, it is going to be rejected. This is what we should know. It should have another category of visas. So we should be very careful about these red flags. And if we take note of them and make sure that we submit the right documents and ensure that there are no errors in them, and we are not using fake agents, and we can clearly articulate what we have put in our motivation letter in the language required, then there is almost the surety that you are going to get your visa. I will be ending by telling you, or by giving you this final word. The 30% rejection, the 30% visa rejection for Africans is a little scary. When some hear this, they will just say, oh, then it means I cannot be admitted. But what I can also say is 70% of people are getting through. So you should be a smart student and a student that is always over-prepared at any given point, and you are going to beat the system. Thank you very much for watching today's episode. And remember, the Senator is always here to serve you. And so hit the subscribe button at any time. And let's keep the discussion flowing in the comments. Thank you.